Hey folks, thanks for tuning in today to this slightly different experimental video. Not exactly a crazy experiment, right enough, but an experiment nonetheless. Basically, it's going to be a little bit like a Q&A where I just run through some comments and questions and things that I've had from subscribers. I did do a community post and a poll. I'm sure everybody is sick to the back teeth of seeing YouTube polls, so that's all the more reason to use them as much as possible and for every little reason. So the YouTube poll that I did came up to, I think, about 75% of people roughly said that they thought that they would tune in to something like this, so that's good. Out of a couple of hundred votes, and I think about 15% said they would tune in but they didn't want a live chat, so sorry folks, and 10% took the time to vote to say that they didn't want anything at all. Much love to those people. They are passionate about, they know what they want basically, and it's not this, so some people won't be tuning in today, so that's absolutely fine. I just thought this would be a good way to answer questions. Slightly different format, going to be a bit more, probably a bit more rambly to be honest, and a little bit free-flowing, and probably a bit longer as well. So what actually got me thinking about doing this in the first place was the amount of questions I was getting regarding Ron Swanson and his new video. And I haven't really talked much about Ron Swanson on this channel, but of course if you're into Daddygate you'll know that Swanson and Atwood have teamed up, and some of their offerings have been, to my mind, quite disturbing, and certainly to the minds of many other people as well. The offerings have been quite disturbing. They basically go hunting through child porn websites, basically, and they present it on Shaun Atwood's channel as entertainment. I don't care what they say, whether it's activism or not, they're presenting it as entertainment. Not my cup of tea. They think, or they claim that they believe there is a noble end to that. But I was getting a lot of questions about Swanson. Now, believe it or not, it wasn't actually to do with the content that him and Atwood have joined together. A match made in heaven to actually put out there. What I was getting questions about was a video that Ron Swanson put out, which, let me just find the title of it. Probably should have had this ready. So, his video on the 12th of May was called "I am not allowed to see my family, brackets, please watch this," all in capitals. And this is what people were asking me about. So, "I am not allowed to see my family, please watch this." Quite a serious video title. Effectively, it just turned out to be an ad for other channels that he's putting out with some information in it. Basically, seems to be trying to make people aware that there is going to be a trial in a few months involving him, and that he has been banned from seeing his family as a result of an incident. Now, he does say at the end, "This is going to be amazing for all my trolls, you're going to be so happy about this," and I know that Shaun Atwood calls me a troll. This kind of thing doesn't make me happy at all. I've got no pleasure in this at all, hence why I wasn't going to give it a video, but it is something that I think is worth talking about. The reason it doesn't give me any pleasure is because these things happen in Scotland. I'm not sure about in the rest of the UK, but certainly in Scotland, as a man, you are removed from your family if there's any hint of a domestic. So you will be effectively banned from seeing your family. It doesn't imply guilt, it just means that there is an overabundance, maybe not even an overabundance, there's just a healthy abundance of caution. And you can understand why the police and the powers that be aren't prepared to take risks when it comes to domestic cases because of the amount of women who die in domestic murders. It's actually a shockingly high amount. I can't quite remember the figure, but I do remember it's actually a really shocking amount. Yeah, so it's 2 women a week who are killed by a current or former partner in England and Wales alone. So you can see why the system is set up to take someone away when there's a hint of I'm not going to say abuse in this case because there's no evidence of abuse, but certainly a hint of a domestic incident, let's say. Now obviously Ron has explained the story in such a way that it makes him sound as if he has kind of been the victim of a bit of a miscarriage of justice, that he has had a mental health breakdown and he behaved in a way that was misconstrued by onlookers, who then phoned the police, and the police came and took him away from his family, or took his family away from him, however the hell it worked. Ron says that his wife was in the car, his pregnant wife, very heavily pregnant I believe, was in the car and she was being sick. He was stressed out about this fact and the fact that their dog had just ran away at exactly the same time. That does sound like a stressful situation. He then, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he was saying that he was asking his wife to get out of the car so they could look for the dog, or for something to happen so that they could go and look for the dog. This was then apparently construed by a neighbour as Ron being aggressive to his wife. And the police came out and that was that. He's taken away from his family. So he says he's pled not guilty. So he's obviously been up in front of a judge, or a sheriff as they are here, and he's pled not guilty. He must have had those bail conditions put on him somehow, and he's had to go back home to whatever property he's living in, which isn't his family home from what I can gather. Now that all sounds fair enough. You kind of think it's easy to stay open-minded in a situation like that, in my opinion, and it's uncharitable to go straight to a negative or a guilty verdict in your mind. Obviously the trial hasn't happened yet, and we'll find out more then, and that might be very enlightening. But Ron's story wasn't very convincing, because after all this, he went on to say that his wife's sister threatened to call the police on him and report him for harassment if he didn't stop contacting her to try and get a hold of his wife. So I would have assumed that had he not done anything wrong to his wife, and I'm not saying he has, but this is where my mind is going, had he not done anything wrong to his wife would be on his side at the moment. She would know that he's been the victim of wrongful arrest or wrongful reports against the police, something like that, and she'd be on his team. She'd be trying to get a hold of him. She'd be saying this is all wrong. And certainly when Ron texted her sister, they wouldn't be getting a message back to him saying don't message us or you'll be getting done for harassment, bucko. That's quite dodgy, let's be honest here. It sounds as if his wife doesn't want anything to do with him. Not a pleasant situation for anyone to be in, let's be honest. So Ron says that he had a mental health crisis and repeated many times throughout the video that he hates himself, that he can't look at his own face in the video editing software that he uses. So he's only going to be doing videos which don't show his face, unless of course it's live streams, in which case he will show his face. He said specifically, obviously he'll still be showing his face on Twitch because he doesn't need to edit that. And he then went on to plug several different channels and shows that he's got coming up. So he said he's going to be doing a new video about necrophilia, or a new video series about necrophilia. It's Ron Swanson we're talking about here, so that shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone with the kind of content that he usually does. I don't think it's the best time really, just thinking about that, to be coming out and saying I've just lost access to my wife and kids, I really need to get them back, and by the way I'm going to be doing a new series on necrophilia soon, so if you could please tune into that. But anyway, that's just comically macabre in my mind. But anyway, he also said that he's going to be doing different shows that are him with guests, him playing characters, going down increasingly darker roads was a kind of theme that he was suggesting. And that's all fine, that's creative output and whatever. I don't mind that, to be honest. I don't really think I have any comment to make on his creative decisions in that regard. If he's just playing characters and doing dramatic things, fine. It's the fact that, is it really appropriate to be plugging this? He was saying, please tune into this new channel that I've created for this and that. Please subscribe to this channel. And I've also made a channel that's just for me and my kids. And he said it quite clearly. He's like, this is just for me and my kids. Just for me and my kids. This is the channel. Please subscribe. And that channel is apparently called Daddy Wolf. So there's a bit of a plug for you, or The Adventures of Daddy Wolf. So I suppose you can go and check that out because he's told everyone about it. And that's the channel that's made just for Ron Swanson and his kids that he wants you to go and subscribe to. The Adventures of Daddy Wolf. Not Daddy Gate, but Daddy Wolf. So, yeah, my thoughts are it doesn't really add up. Not really a good time to be plugging other channels and things like that, financial opportunities, when you're talking about how you've just lost access to your wife and kids. He has said he's pled not guilty. You have to wait until the trial. It's 50-50 whether he gets found guilty or not guilty, because we don't know what the story is really. But the way he's described it doesn't really make much sense. He did say that he's having a large mental health crisis, and that's what happened when he was reported to the police. So not much more really to say on it than that. I'm certainly not gloating at all, as he seems to think people will do. I don't find this entertaining, to be honest with you. It sounds pretty tragic, and he does probably need to get some kind of mental health treatment. He did say that he's getting some online counselling. That ain't going to cut the mustard in court. If you're getting counselling to address behaviour or something like that, you're going to need to go to a proper shrink if you're wanting that to be, taken as mitigating circumstances in court, or, to help with any defence in court. You can't really just say I was getting online therapy. I don't think that's going to work. It sounds like a bit of a cop-out. And also, if it was me and that had happened to me, and this was an actual situation where I had just been wrongly taken away from my family, I would not in any way, shape or form hate myself. I would be fighting extremely hard to try and right the wrongs, and I'd be explaining exactly what happened to people if I decided to go onto YouTube and talk about it, that is, which I very much doubt I would. But if I decided to tell people about it, I'd be giving them all the details, and I'd be asking for help, and I'd be saying, please tell me if you know any lawyers or anything like that, because I need to get this addressed properly, because this is a miscarriage of justice. Whereas Ron just seems to be saying, yeah, I feel really bad, I feel terrible, I can't look at myself, I hate myself, I've got bad mental health, and I didn't do anything wrong, and I'm pleading not guilty. So there's a little bit of a sort of fracture there between the two sides of the story, which we haven't been given any detail about what's really going on there. Anyway, I'm not here to shit on anyone. We'll see how it goes. I still strongly disagree with the kind of content that he puts out on Mr. Atwoo's channel, at least. I don't watch the Ron Swanson channel or the Surviving Life channel. So I don't really know what his content is like on its own, but if it's anything like the live streams that was going out on the Sean Atwood channel, totally inappropriate and absolutely unthinkably strange is all I can say. And it doesn't count as art when you're showing the faces of abused youngsters in your videos. I think it's just... I'm surprised it's legal, put it like that, but apparently it is. So we'll take a look at some other comments now as well, but that was the one that got me started thinking I'll maybe do a video just to talk about it without doing a video on its own. So here's a good one that I got this morning at the time of recording, which is, why have you filled your videos with adverts? I have a rule. Once the first advert comes on, I stop the video and stop watching. Well, Steve, it's too late by then, because you've already started watching the video, so... And then you comment on the video as well, so I mean, that gives me nice engagement too, but... You've got this moral opposition to ads, and by the way, I've been monetized since I hit 1,000 subscribers, which is 8,000 subscribers ago. So it's taking you a little bit of time to catch up and realise that there's ads on my videos, and I think my videos get about 50% ads and 50% of them are instantly demonetized. Now, quite funnily, the Sean Atwood content quite often gets monetized after I do a manual review request to YouTube, meaning that sometimes several members of the YouTube staff need to sit through the entire video. So they are hopefully enjoying my videos about Shaun Attwood, and it seems that they do, because the majority of the Shaun Attwood videos do get monetized after a manual review, which I always find extremely entertaining. But yeah, I mean, I've been monetized since 1,000 subs, so that'll be why you see ads on my videos now and again. But yeah, I mean, if the ads annoy people, then certainly let me know, because sometimes you just let YouTube place them automatically, and then you go back and look and it's put 11 ads in a video, which is obviously not going to make people sit around and watch. I'm the same. If I see 11 ads on a 15-minute video, I'm not watching it. But I'm also not morally opposed in the slightest to advertising. There are various apps you can use so that you don't have to see ads. You can also have YouTube Premium as well. And, you know, if I was morally opposed to advertising, I wouldn't use YouTube, because using YouTube is supporting what you are morally opposed to if you're morally opposed to adverts. It's not a very strong sense of morals anyway, strong enough to make you type a comment and show off how moral you are, but not strong enough to actually not use the platform. But yes, lots and lots of ads in a video are annoying, and that's something that I try to avoid. I got another comment as well today, and it was talking about how BH has lost all of his YouTube channels, which is quite concerning to say the least. No matter what you think of BH, his speech has been suppressed completely by this. This basically turfs him off YouTube completely. They've gone after not only his main channel, but all his backup channels as well, all at once. So something's definitely going on in the background there. I don't know what the reasons behind it are. It's unlike YouTube to go after all of someone's backup channels. Backup channels historically on YouTube were good tools to have, because YouTube wouldn't go after your backup channel, it would go after your infracting channel only. And I think Brian had 8 different channels, and I can't see how all of them would have infracted on the same day. I don't even know if infracted is a word, but you know what I mean. Whether they would all do that on the same day and suddenly, you know, all break the rules on the same day and then YouTube deletes them all, seems very suspicious to me. It looks like he's getting Alex Jones'd, and it's censorship, and it's not very fair, in my opinion, to censor somebody like that. People can choose to go to someone else's channel if they wish. It's also quite odd how certain characters have talked openly about how Brian Harvey should be deplatformed just recently, and now he has now been deplatformed. So I find that a bit suspicious, considering certain characters were talking about Brian Harvey, how he should be charged just before he was arrested last time, or just before the police came to his house the last time anyway. I don't know if he was, can't remember if he was arrested or not, but either way, an absolute joke, and some very shady stuff going on YouTube in the truth community. Basically, it looks like people are just grassing each other up. So, fun and games. So we've got a comment here from Nadine, or a question, and it says, you could maybe ask him, talking about Shaun Attwood I believe, who taught him and how he learned to become one of the many lying low-life scumbags to walk the planet. And also when he might consider stopping being a perverted cunt and actually do some good and help humanity. Interesting point, Nadine, thank you. Yeah, I think, I don't know who taught him, but certainly how he learned. He read the 48 Laws of Power, by the sounds of things, and it appealed to him to such a degree that he thought, this is a nice replacement for a personality, I'm just going to adopt this. That's the way it looks to me on the outside anyway. Calling him a low-life scumbag, obviously that is a matter of opinion. I would think that it is fair to describe somebody as a scumbag when they take advantage of autistic women, getting them to dress as little girls and getting them to perform acts on them. or at least go through the motions of performing acts on them, dressed as little girls, I would think it's fair to call that person a scumbag, especially when that person claims to be an activist fighting to stop the war on child abuse and child trafficking, etc. So yes, I see where Nadine's coming from on that one. Do some good and help humanity. You know, it is a bit of a waste. He's got a channel with 700,000 subscribers, so he should be trying to use that platform to do some good, rather than just going and shaking hands with Prince Edward and then spending months ranting about Prince Andrew. He's an odd one, and that's why we talk about him. Grace Lee says that Ronnie Boy Swanson is currently in a pickle and asking for money. Basically, it's alleged that he and his wife were seen by neighbours and stated he was getting physical, blah blah blah. I could not listen to the rest. His presence sickens me, like Sean. So I don't know if it was said that he was getting physical or just aggressive. I can't quite remember that, but absolutely the neighbour has phoned the police and said that they saw something that was concerning enough for Ron Swanson to end up in front of a judge pleading not guilty, or in front of a sheriff pleading not guilty. Grace also says, strange times, Atwood can speculate about Prince Andrew, Epstein, chat Ron Swanson about pitiful things, yet others cannot talk about how shonky Sean and his associates are. So very true. And we've got another comment that starts with strange times as well, because it very much is. Strange times when low-life drug dealers can make themselves out and be lauded as heroes. Totally wrong, and I agree with this comment completely, especially when you've been dishing out violence, or it's been said that you've been dishing out violence, and you've really been destroying lives. You're not going to come out of it as a hero. You shouldn't come out of it as a hero. Now, you maybe shouldn't be getting judged for it for the rest of your life, but if you are judged for it for the rest of your life, that's on you and nobody else. That's your fault. If you've enacted violence on other people or used fear and intimidation to ply your trade, like Mr. Atwood allegedly has according to articles about him, and also like so many of his guests have, many of whom don't appear to be reformed in the slightest, they just appear to think their stories are amazing. Basically, it's just an ego flex for them. There's been very few people who I have seen on Sean Atwood's show who have actually remorsefully turned their lives around, but there have been a couple who you can tell really absolutely want nothing to do with it. Their ego gets no satisfaction from talking about what they did. They pretty much wish that it had never happened, and they are trying to redeem themselves. So these are good people who made bad decisions. With people like Mr. Atwood and other people who still boast about their time as dealers, especially the ones that dished out violence. I know I keep going back to this, but it's going to take an awful lot of redemption to clear you of that in life. And many of these people likely don't have consciences, but many of them also do. And I don't know how your conscience ever becomes clear from knowing that you were dishing out violence and intimidation against addicts to make money. It's going to take an awful long time to redeem yourself there, but you can do it, and you need to work hard at it. You can't just stick your middle finger up at everyone who points it out and laugh in their faces and block and delete. So Mr. Doodle, screw it and do it. Thanks for the message, dude. This guy's sound. I speak to him on Twitter sometimes. He says he also wants to point out, Chancer, that Shatwood got Blink McDonald down for his show. Blink McDonald's a gangster, and he says most will aim for Paul Ferris, who's also from the same area, another gangster, and these were real gangsters. Most will aim for Paul Ferris, who was on James English 3 times. I wondered if Paul was asked but done his homework first and gave him a wide berth. He does know all the main faces down south. Well, you know, this is an interesting point, and I did reply to this comment to say this, but Paul Ferris, who was on James English 3 times, has never been on Sean Atwood, and I was told by somebody who claims that they know And I'm not going to say who they are or what the content of the messages was or anything like that, but they said that there's a reason that Paul Ferris hasn't gone on Sean Atwood's show. And I don't know what that reason is, but there's a reason that Paul Ferris has refused to go on Sean Atwood's show. I don't believe it's to do with Daddygate. I believe it's to do with something that happened before Daddygate, but I don't know what it's actually about. If anyone can shed any light on that, that'd be very cool. Stephen says, if anybody asks #Daddy Atwood about investing in the stock market, he always replies, it's going to crash. Is there proof they ever traded on the stock market? Well, that is a bloody good point, because Atwood does not speak like somebody who actually knows anything about the stock market. It doesn't sound like he knows what he's talking about, because every time he's asked about it, he always gives a very, very, very basic answer, such as, it's going to crash. He doesn't give any lingo, any tips, any advice on what he's doing himself. He doesn't need to be dishing out financial or investing advice to other people, but he can certainly say, don't take financial advice from me. I'm not a professional trader anymore, but if it was me, I'd be doing this, that, or the other. But he doesn't seem to know what he's talking about. Maybe he's just trying to keep all the good tips to himself, or, whatever it is. But I reckon a stock trader would be able to have Atwood sussed out very quickly. So we've got another comment here, this time from Michaela, and she says, hi Chancer, Atwood was on Michael Franchese channel, and you're right, he didn't mention the Daddygate situation or that he used a trafficked woman. The man is despicable. I doubt Mr. Franchese, I don't know if I'm saying that right, I don't think it's pronounced Franchese, but there we go. I doubt Mr. Franchese would have had him on if he knew half the man Atwood really is. And yes, it's a good point, because Atwood goes on these shows and says nothing about the Daddygate situation, even though it was supposedly a prank. So you would think he would just be talking about it openly, but these people know nothing about it. I went into the comments on this channel after seeing this comment. I went into the comments on this Michael Franchese channel and saw Atwood in the comments saying basically something along the lines of, thank you for proving I really was dealing ecstasy, because you heard about my ecstasy ring in the 90s and you heard that we were rivals of Sammy the Bull. So that proves everything, apparently. Just somebody that's desperate to get a story out there and have people believe in a story, and every little thing you'll seize on and say, this is evidence, this is proof, when it's absolutely not. I could probably actually get somebody to think they remember something just by talking to them about it. It's not difficult. And the way Atwood actually worded his comment, it looked just more like a PR comment. Like, look, here's proof that this guy has apparently proven that I was dealing ecstasy. That's it. No further questions. So I went down into the comments below that, the replies to that comment, and there's some good comments there. Some people who are awake and know about what's going on. And Mr. Atwood's response to them is that it was a prank on some trolls. Of course it is. The most patronising answer you could possibly hope for. Absolutely exactly what you would expect from Mr. Atwood. So here's another one which was actually put down in the comments below the poll. And the question that this person asks, Bananas in Pajamas they're called, and they ask, what makes you any better than Atwood? Which is a bit of a loaded question, to be honest, because I've never said that I'm any better than Mr. Atwood, because I don't think in terms of I'm better than Sean Atwood. That's for other people to decide. I don't care. Like, my opinion of how I feel doesn't affect Sean Atwood's opinion of how he feels. So this is a completely irrelevant thing to say, and it shows that the person who's typed the question thinks in terms of better or worse than other people, because that kind of phrasing doesn't come into my head. We've got Julia, who always writes in capitals and is actually not a woman, it's a bloke calling himself Julia H, and I know exactly who he is, and I thought we were actually okay with each other, but Julia has commented, "Hey Chancer," this is actually about the Sonia Poulton case. "Hey Chancer, bit quiet in basically the suing Sonia side of things. You want to ask them for an update on how they know their butt is being kicked? Think they had some bad news today?" Well, Julia, give me the bad news. Tell me what that news is, because as far as I can tell, you haven't said anything other than this exact same comment multiple times over the years. Feels like years anyway, over the months. But Julia, or this person claiming to be Julia, used to be on the Brand YouTube videos. When Brand YouTube was hacked, Julia H suddenly appeared after another channel got called out. And let's just say, as I say, I thought we were okay with each other. I thought we'd had a little bit of a back and forth and things were alright, but this Julia H is well mad and they are absolutely on Team Sonia, 100%. But they always say that the side that's suing Sonia has had some bad news and getting their ass kicked, but they never provide any evidence to that fact. So I'll just keep using my sources and trying to remain as unbiased as I possibly can in the circumstances. I have no personal stake in any side of that court case, but I do find elements of it extremely interesting. And I'm actually very interested to find out what the outcome of that is going to be and get everything laid out. Here's an interesting comment. Remember when Sean Atwood's arrest and involvement with mafia families was all over the news in England? Neither do we. Quite interesting, that one, because if you think about it, Atwood was only in the papers after he got home, when his mum and dad, who are in the media, they're in PR, got him a few gigs, a few stories in papers and things like that. Got his blog set up, got his channel set up, and tried to do the best they could for him to set him up back into the real world again. But it was only then that his story hit the press. There's nothing prior to that that says English guy arrested for enormous international drug smuggling and ecstasy ring in the States. There was nothing like that. There's no prior information from newspapers about Sean Atwood's arrest. There's only that Phoenix Times article, and there's nothing in the UK press prior to Sean Atwood touching back down after his sentence. I always wonder if his parents are kind of wishing that maybe he had sorted himself out by now, by his mid-50s. Here's a comment here from Sunshine. "What I don't get is why Sean lives in a dumpy rented flat, no decent furniture or anything close to impressive, yet imitates what he thinks a high roller does with driving around in a douchey BMW, albeit a low-end model, and wears his three-piece suits like he's dressed for a corporate job. But they don't fit properly, they're not tailored suits. He was supposed to be a brilliant stockbroker and had the brains to run a methamphetamine empire, author books, but has no money. Why isn't he getting rich from investing all of that YouTube money he makes from those almost 700,000 subs?" Funny comment, and yeah, people notice it. And it's a good point about the furniture, because, you know, if you're wealthy, you're going to have good furniture. And it doesn't seem that Sean Atwood does have good furniture. He's got very basic furniture, the kind of stuff that just comes with a flat when you move in. Nothing nice. Maybe he's not an aesthetic person, though. He maybe doesn't like nice furniture. So I'm going to wrap this up soon, but let's have a little scroll through some of the other comments and see what's going on here. Comment from Jill there. "Sick of people being entertained by gangsters and criminals. Move on and save the children if they really care." Yes, exactly. John says, "It's ridiculously low to have only a few thousand views. When your numbers are that high, you would expect at the very least 100,000 views. And as for saying people who absolutely don't need to purchase views, it's absolutely ridiculous." And that is true, because Sonia Poulton said in court that the Kardashians and other people are buying views. Bryson, "Has anyone ever seen the plaque from YouTube for his sub count?" Nope. Nobody has. So a week ago on my Cali in jail update video, just noticed a comment here. It says, from a guy called Winky Wank, good name, it says, he managed to do a video explaining the situation with Darren, but has not felt obliged to do any sort of video regarding this gal, whom he is so identified with. Weird. Chances are you absolutely 100% it's her that's been sentenced? Check and check again, maybe. It is her that's been sentenced, it is her that's been imprisoned. There are other people with the name Jenny Ann Brearley, but it is this Jenny Ann Brearley who has been imprisoned. That is 100% confirmed. A message from 2 weeks ago from Denise. There are cops in the US who threaten streetwalkers with arrest if they don't comply and give them sexual favours. Sickening. Yes, I have heard that, and that's absolutely just the most lowest level of degeneracy possible. And I was very pleased to see that officer breaking down in tears and crying when he realised that he was getting, I think, a 30-year sentence for forcing a prostitute. Or I don't even know if it was a prostitute actually, but he certainly targeted several prostitutes in a similar way. But he forced a woman to perform a sex act on him after he pulled her over. And he pulled her over using his squad car out with work hours. It was ended up being tracked down and traced, and he ended up getting busted. And there's nothing sweeter than seeing this guy hearing his sentence, the colour draining from his face, and he's just crushed. And so he fucking should be. And hopefully he is getting crushed in prison as well. His life is going to be a horrible one, so I hope it was well worth it there, buddy. So it was very nice to see. I'm not against police at all. I'm absolutely not anti-police. I'm supportive of the police when it comes to when they have to face violent criminals and things like that. I'm not supportive of the police when they carry out the work of a corrupt government. And I'm not supportive of the police when they work together with other police forces to track down Twitter users, such as what happened recently to somebody on Twitter. I can't remember their name, but it's just getting out of hand, especially in the UK, but it's also getting out of hand, starting to get out of hand in the US as well. The US is not safe. Somebody very lightly criticised Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, or Occasional Cortex, on Twitter recently. I can't even remember what they said. It was so mild and so tame. It was clearly a left-wing person talking about a left-wing politician, so they were disagreeing in an extremely polite way. They were just unhappy with something that she'd done, and the police turned up. And obviously, with it being the US, the armed police that turn up to someone's door to ask them about a tweet they've sent, that used to be completely unheard of in the US. The fact that it's encroaching onto the US is quite concerning, really. Maybe the whole Western world is starting to creep up towards totalitarianism. Here's somebody talking about that Michael Franzese podcast as well. Mena da Fennec Fox. Thank you for posting this comment. I didn't actually notice this at the time. It says, have you seen the interview with Atwood on Michael Franzese's podcast? Franzese said he was running a nightclub in LA and had a problem with ecstasy in the club. He asked his doorman where they were coming from, and they said from an English guy in Arizona. Atwood says, thanks for confirming my story. The whole thing seems set up. Atwood is delighted by this. I don't understand how that confirms an anecdotal story that is full of holes. His stories are all constructed the same way. They are all sewn up, so you can't prove otherwise, either by dead people or people he can manipulate being the only people that can confirm them. The whole thing is all about the silly stories that sound like clips from a movie and there's no real substance. It's utter BS. That comment is going to be pinned, if I can find it. So you can't even pin it from YouTube Studio. Well, that's ridiculous. I'll go in and pin that comment later. The numbers of ecstasy he said he imported went up from 10,000 in the Marvin Herbert podcast to 40,000 in this one. He's now lying to cover up lies. He will come unstuck at some point. Him and his friend that used to sleep rough and draw lots of attention to himself were competing with whole teams of mafia guys. He went with 2 cars full of people to pick up 1,000 Ds. Atwood is utterly clueless about the drug trade. He's a guy that lives in his own head and only surrounds himself with people that he can manipulate. Hey, this Mena da Fennec Fox guy is absolutely spot on with his people reading skills here. This guy sees right through Atwood. He's a guy that lives in his own head, surrounds himself with people he can manipulate. Absolutely. You see how reactive he is to silly little things on YouTube. A person like him wouldn't be able to navigate his way around in a world where people will take you out at every opportunity. People in the drugs trade would have nothing to do with a liability like him. He's too weak. Exactly. I think he was nothing near a big shot. Nothing near competing with big people. He was very likely a big boy in a very small pond. A big boy surrounded by all the people that he can manipulate. Somebody that was making a lot of money to him, a lot of money in his mind, which wasn't even a day's wages to the people that he's claiming he was competing with. And he does say that he competed heavily with Sammy the Bull. He said that his foot soldiers were fighting Sammy the Bull's foot soldiers. That's a quote from Shaun Attwood, and that he was butting heads with Sammy the Bull. Absolute bullshit. Very good comment there. I'm going to go into the video and pin that. So I think I might wrap this one up, folks. It's been a very good little session of getting through comments and stuff there. If you've got any comments or questions that you want to ask, then please, by all means, post them in the comments here. The live chat has also been running as well, possibly, if I've managed to get it working. So, if so, hopefully you had fun in there. Feel free to let me know what you think of this format. Of course, remember to subscribe if you're not subscribed already. Remember to like the video, of course. I'm going to be on Odyssey as well, so this video will be over on Odyssey too. However, it will not have a chat, obviously. Please do subscribe on Odyssey. You can see what happened to Brian Harvey. It does show that backup channels on YouTube are not safety nets like they once were. So please do subscribe on Odyssey. I'm not expecting to get kicked off of YouTube by YouTube, but people are always trying to play silly games in this little arena that we're in. So I'm not trying to say that I'm at risk particularly, but when I see what's happening to Wheezy, and I would suggest that you do go and subscribe to the What Is Truth podcast and the What Is Truth live streams channel. When I see what's happening to him with all these strikes that he's getting on him at once, it seems like a concerted effort to attack and bring down his channel. That's the one way that you can bring down someone's channel as an outsider or as a third party, is by hitting them with copyright strikes. What happened to Brian Harvey was something totally different. 8 channels disappearing at once. Very strange. I know Wheezy will pass on my best wishes to Brian about this, and I know Brian will obviously get back on his feet very quickly regarding this. But somebody said to me, they're kind of proving Brian's point when they take down all his channels. They're kind of proving his point a little bit, that the powers that be don't want him to be speaking. This certainly doesn't help. So shout out to Brian Harvey. Shout out to What Is Truth as well, of course. Thanks to everyone who's tuned in today. Thanks for everyone in the live chat. Thank you to Missy for modding. If you are modding, if I've got you modding, that's perfect. I'm sure you've done an amazing job as always. And I appreciate everyone who's tuned in. We'll maybe see you next time. Depends what the comments say. And take it easy, folks. Cheers.
Maybe we should all just put away our problems. We just need to forget about everything